Hi, everybody. I'm Nina Bosky. I'm one of the producers of Behind the Icon. And as we are getting into season 2, episode 1, called Soul Sisters, I have a wonderful member of the cast that plays actually a prominent figure at that time during civil rights, the Democratic Party. Her name was Mathilde Krim, and my actress that plays Matilda in this episode is a wonderful actress and producer. Her name is Nika Khitrova. So nice to see you today. I'm so excited.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So we've got a lot to unpack here. The person that you portray, Mathilde Krim, is an important figure in her own right. But she was married at the time to one of the most prominent, figures, Arthur Krim, who was an entertainment lawyer and also the chairman of the finance committee for the Democratic Party. I mean, obviously, I know he advised President Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and then we also have potentially even as far as Jimmy Carter. And so in this episode, Soul Sisters, the after party is actually at the Krims apartment in New York City, and Matilda is the character that you play, and she's an important character in her own right. What did you learn about her in terms of kind of reading up on her and playing her as in this cast?
Well, I just thought she was absolutely fascinating. I didn't know anything about her before being invited to take part in this project. I did a little bit of research of her, mainly to get an accent tag. And she had these fabulous interviews. They're all still on YouTube. They're like an hour long, fiercely intelligent, very well read, very well educated. And she just talks so beautifully and eloquently, and she explains herself so well. So she actually pioneered the research for AIDS HIV back in the day when, no one was really recognizing that it was a big deal. No one was really taking action. No one was informing anyone how not to get infected. So she did a lot of work to help people. And she was also in 2002, I believe, she was given forgive me, I forget the name of the prize.
It's the 2000, and President Clinton awarded her the presidential, let me read this right, Medal of Freedom, and the highest civilian honor in the United States for her commitment and her compassion. So that really kind of shows, who she was and how committed she was, not only during the AIDS and HIV, which is, a decade or two later, but certainly during the 1960s, where civil rights really meant a lot to her, as well as people will soon find out. You got to listen to Find the Icon to really hear, right? What was going on, and Matilda's, influence in that time period. But also, it was really interesting because she was, as you say, she was a very fierce kind of advocate for human civil rights, and particularly making sure that the gay and lesbian community felt that sense of on equal footing, and making sure that everybody felt like a human being during that time, where at that time it still wasn't exactly okay the way that it is now in today's climate to have your sexuality be known, and then not have that virus be the HIV virus to be that of kind of what's going on right now about, oh my gosh, you've got COVID, you've got the, a vaccine, non-vaccine, there's all these things that come into that fear. Yes. And it was really interesting too, because talk about a smart woman. She solicited Elizabeth Taylor to the movement. And so she was the woman behind really the powerhouse that really launched this whole campaign. And Elizabeth Taylor became the huge figurehead that was able to raise all this money and to be able to get the awareness out there at that time. And, in this episode, it deals with civil rights as well. And after reading the script, what made you go, yeah, I want to be part of this podcast?
Honestly, I've been, an actress for a while and I've read a lot of script. The script made me cry.
Oh,
Like it really did. It just touched me on a level because I knew a little bit about some of the famous characters. I certainly didn't know what I know now through reading the script. But just, I'm also like a little bit infatuated with that period and that time. I think I've always looked up to just what was happening in the world then, but I just didn't realize that these individual figures that had so much influence and power, that they were that interested in civil rights. So when I read this, it's kind of like that bristling. I think we all feel like the time while Kennedy was still alive, things could have gone somewhere, like things could have happened. And of course, after his death, I feel like the America changed and the world changed. And I think America took a giant left turn. And I don't know if it can ever come back to what could have possibly happened. So it was the sadness of the loss of the potential, and how they're still so young, and they don't know what's coming up in the next few years. So it just made me feel so sad and so tragic and so beautiful, that they're just so full of energy and they really want to make this happen.
well, it's also interesting too, Nika, is that, a lot of the play for the Happy Birthday, Mr. President, and his birthday at that time at that event only sheds light on the more scandalous and more kind of seductive part of just the song.
Yeah.
And behind the song, behind the party and the glamour, were individual souls really trying to make and bring civil rights forward. So I think one of the things that people will see in this episode or hear in this episode is the fact that there was other things going on besides just the surfacey things that were all tantalizing. Oh my gosh, was somebody having an affair? It's much bigger and deeper, kind of like Marilyn Monroe herself, where people like to portray her more surfacey, and yet she was a very deep, mystical soul. And, look at Mathilde Krim, a powerhouse unto herself, coming from a challenging, background herself. And maybe that's part of the reason why she didn't want to have people be marginalized, regardless of what your race is, what your sexual orientation is as well. So I think, as we move into, this episode and present time, I find some of the same themes.
Oh, absolutely.
Still quite prevalent today.
Very, very, extremely so.
Yeah. So let's talk about your acting career, because you just jumped into this part and nailed Mathilde quite well, and hey, I mean, you have a varied background yourself, and obviously you know how to get her accent down. So tell us a little bit about your career.
Well, I started when I was 15 years old, mainly because my best friend at the time, who obviously I wanted to be around all the time, she went to an acting class at her local synagogue. She was Jewish, I was not. And after like 3 lessons, they kicked me out because they're like, well, you're not Jewish, you can't come. And of course, being 15 and, hormones blazing, and it was just, my world ended. I cried hysterically, I think, for a week. So my mother, bless her, we're originally Russian from Moscow, and we were living in London at the time. So she kind of scrambled to find me an acting class. And so I ended up working in a small kind of off-Broadway equivalent, little black box theater space, sort of training and having small roles. And then slowly, of course, the roles go bigger. And then me and my husband, who I met at that company, went off and started our own theater company. So I've been producing and acting for a while. And then I moved to LA 7 years ago. So I've been doing TV and film.
That's wonderful. And I have to say, we found you. I was trying to find that right person that can actually bring Mathilde to life was really key. What do you like about the episode? I know you heard that you said it made me cry, but why do you think this episode is important for people to hear?
Well, mainly I think it's because no one really knows that these characters had so much going on in their personal life, and that they cared so much about other issues that they could have quite easily, being celebrities, overlooked. Maybe not everyone, but certainly some people. So I think it's really important for people to kind of get that third dimension to these celebrity characters. So because we see them all the time, we see them in movies, we see them in posters, cultural references. So after hearing this episode, they'll be like, oh, well, I actually know something about Ella that I didn't know before, and I actually know something about Marilyn that I didn't know before. So I think they'll keep it with them forever, I hope.
Well, we are so excited to have you as part of the Behind the Icon cast. As you know, as we move into more episodes, there'll be other parts because certainly, as you will hear with the other cast members, they've jumped around and played different parts because you guys are all so talented. So just want to say thank you so much. We are honored to have you and excited to have you play such an important woman in history as well.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Nika.
Thank you.